What's going on, everybody? Today is going to be a super simple pattern that only requires a few colors of airbrushing. The blank that we are using today is a 3.5-inch jerk minnow from Barlow's Tackle. It's got the one knock inside, so there's that little bar running through there with the spring, so it makes the one knock sound. Whenever it's not on camera, you can actually see the little weight sliding back and forth. So that's pretty cool. The pattern we're doing is a trout pattern. It's one of those patterns that looks complicated, but is actually super easy. And there's so many different ways you can paint it. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to be doing is giving the whole bait a nice base coat of opaque white. Base coat of white is on. The next color we're going to be spraying is a pearlized copper. And the whole bait head to toe is going to get a nice coat of that. I'll probably do 2 layers just so we can build up that gold nicely and make sure all the white is covered. And now that the pearl copper is on and heat set, we're going to be taking some transparent bright red. And what we're going to be doing with that is spraying a nice line right down the center. We're going to be hitting the gill plate and up by the eye and everything. Now, this bait's really skinny from top to bottom, so if the airbrush gets out of control a little bit, we might get some overspray on top or towards the belly. That is okay, but the best that we can, we're going to try to do a nice straight line right down the center of the bait. I think for this step, I'm going to try to hold the airbrush with 2 hands. Try to have a little bit more control over it. And there we go, that's not too bad. Back of the bait's so skinny, it kind of got away from me a little bit there, but that's okay. The green that we're going to be using is a pearlized lime ice, is what they call it. And what we're going to be doing with that is spraying the back of the bait with it. I'm not wanting to turn it a solid green. I just want that pearl to kind of reflect on top of that gold. So that way, whenever the sun's hitting it or the light's hitting it, it's not just solid gold on top. It's got a little hue of green on it. So just a little bit of dusting. I'm not sure how well that's showing up on camera, but once the paint's all dry and the clear coat's on, we should be able to see that green showing up. The last thing that we're going to be doing with the airbrush is taking some transparent black. So I'm going to start up here on the bait with some vertical lines, and then as we get further down to the bottom of the bait, they'll pretty much just turn into circles. So there'll probably be about 5 or 6 lines / circles going down the side of the bait. Again, I'm going to be using 2 hands to try to help control or keep the airbrush steady so I don't end up with a black trout. I'm going to go ahead and add one up here right by the gill plate as well. And while we're here, I'm going to darken up the nose of the bait and kind of let some of that overspray go over onto the gill plate. And we're going to repeat it on the other side. And then while we have the black still loaded up in the airbrush, I'm going to, as carefully as I can, darken the back of the bait just a little bit. I don't want it to be black because I still want that green to show through, but I want there to be a difference in between the gold green that's above the red line and then the back of it. And what we're going to do now is take our black paint, and I'm going to use a toothpick that's been cut off at one end and the other end is still pointy, and we're going to add a bunch of dots to the bait. I think with a pattern like this, there's no such thing as too many dots as long as they're all smaller ones. I'm going to try to keep the bigger dots up towards the back and kind of down past the ones that we sprayed. I'm going to go ahead and give the whole back a nice scattered pattern of dots. And we're going to repeat the same process on this side. I think I'm pretty happy with all of the big dots that's on there. And what we're going to do now is take the pointy end of the toothpick and we're going to add a whole bunch more little dots. We're just going to kind of fill in any gaps and then also going to be able to do all these little dots up on the gill plate. Really controlled way of adding some speckles. If you've watched my other videos, you know I'm a big fan of doing the like splatter paint on a bait. This is quite the opposite. A little more time consuming, but very controlled. I'm going to call that good on the black dots for now. So what we're going to do is hit this with the hairdryer. And then we're going to take some opaque white. And we're going to go back in and on top of some of these black dots, we're going to add a white dot right in the center. You don't want to do it on all of them, but like every third one, I think looks pretty good. And I'm using the pointy end of the toothpick. That way I don't end up with a huge white dot. And this adds a little bit more depth to the bait. Makes it look more alive. And now I'm just going to go in and add some little bitty tiny white dots, and I'm going to try to keep them going right down the center of the bait. So we are going to call it there on the dots. Last thing we're going to do is glue in some eyes, and I've got some red, black, and silver one, so it should match our pattern pretty well. A little dab of glue. So there are a couple of these dots on here that I think I'm going to go clean up just a little bit. But otherwise, that is the super simple, easy to paint trout pattern. If you guys follow any of my videos or tutorials and you paint them for yourself, make sure to tag me on Facebook or Instagram. I'd like to see how your guys has turned out, and then if you guys did anything different or use a different color combo, I would love to see it. So make sure you tag me if you guys do follow the tutorial. I'm gonna clean up a couple of these dots and then get some clear coat on this, and we will come back and take a look at what she looks like all finished up.